In level 1, we learned that we create our own reality. I got that. But here's what still gets me. I want to change my financial situation. I say I believe I can. So why does my bank account look the same? What's the missing piece between wanting and having?
Welcome to this deep dive.
Mhm.
And, what a perfect place to start, because that gap, the frustrating, often really painful void between what you consciously say you desire and what you actually experience in your day-to-day life is exactly what we are going to explore today.
Yeah, because it drives people crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So we are going to look directly at the tension between your conscious wants and your unconscious expectations. And to do this, we're relying on a very specific stack of foundational material from Jane Roberts.
Right.
Specifically, we are diving into the mechanics laid out in Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of the nature of personal reality. We'll also pull in crucial context regarding the nature of physical matter from Seth Speaks, and utilize the ultimate operating systems of reality defined in the Unknown Reality Volume 1. About Framework 1 and Framework 2.
Okay, the frameworks.
Yes. But to set the baseline for this entire exploration, I need to read a quote directly from Chapter 1 of The Nature of Personal Reality. The author, speaking through Jane Roberts, says this: "You create your own reality, period. There is no other rule,
Wow. Period.
period." And then he follows up that thought in Chapter 2 by stating this verbatim rule: "You get what you concentrate upon. There is no other main rule."
I mean, that sounds incredibly definitive. There are no caveats in those statements at all.
None.
There's no exceptions for a struggling economy or no passes for a difficult childhood or systemic issues. It just says, period, you create it.
Which is, frankly, a really tough pill to swallow when you're looking at a life situation you actively dislike.
Totally. And for you listening right now, that is our mission today. We are not going to sit here and just offer like vague spiritual platitudes. We are not going to tell you to just think happier thoughts or make a vision board.
Definitely not. We are going to tear down the engine of reality creation to understand exactly how it runs, down to the nuts and bolts. Because to truly understand why the physical world appears so stubborn, we have to grasp the magnitude of the sources we are working with today.
Right.
For those who might only know these concepts through secondary sources or, modern manifestation coaches, we really need to talk about where this material actually comes from. We are talking about the Seth material, channeled by Jane Roberts starting in the 1960s.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to set the stage here because when people hear the word channeling, they often picture something incredibly theatrical, maybe a bit ungrounded.
Right, like a parlor trick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the transcripts of Jane Roberts' sessions, which were recorded meticulously by her husband, Robert Butts, they are dense, incredibly coherent, highly systematic philosophical texts.
You really are.
This wasn't someone offering vague fortunes. This was a structured, decades-long dictation of the metaphysical mechanics of the universe.
And out of all the volumes produced, the 3 texts we are focusing on today form the absolute core of the methodology.
Okay, so break those down for us.
So Seth Speaks lays the groundwork for what the soul is and what physical reality actually is made of. Then the nature of personal reality is essentially the practical manual for how your individual beliefs shape that physical reality.
The how-to guide.
Exactly. And finally, the unknown reality introduces the overarching architecture of the 2 environments where all of this happens, Framework 1 and Framework 2. We have to start with those frameworks because if you don't understand the difference between them, you will spend your entire life fighting the wrong battles.
Well, let's get into that architecture then, because that gap between wanting and having that, I mentioned at the start, that feeling of doing everything right but getting nowhere, feels like a systemic error.
Yes.
Like we read the books, we do the morning affirmations, we set our goals, and the external reality just sits there completely indifferent to our effort.
Right. It seems indifferent because you are attempting to manipulate the output without understanding the input. Let's break down Seth's ultimate diagnosis of the human condition by clearly defining these 2 environments, relying on the extensive definitions provided in the Unknown Reality.
Okay, let's start with Framework 1.
Framework 1 is the physical world of action. It is the realm of linear time, of rigid cause and effect, and of tangible physical results.
So it's the world of the alarm clock going off at 6 a.m.
Right.
It's the world where gravity pulls things down, where you have to physically commute to a job, where you swipe a credit card and money mathematically leaves an account.
Exactly. It is the environment that our physical senses, our sight, sound, touch, are exquisitely calibrated to perceive.
They're locked into that specific channel.
Yes. So I want to push further on that idea of the physical senses. In the Seth material, your physical senses are not just neutral observation tools that passively record an objective universe.
What are they then?
They are highly specialized filters. They are designed to only perceive a very narrow, specific band of reality, creating the illusion of linear time and solid space. Framework 1 is entirely constructed by these senses. But beneath that, or rather encompassing it entirely, is Framework 2.
Okay, so I'm trying to visualize this. F1 is the physical world. If Framework 1 is the physical world of action and time, what is the physics of Framework 2? How does it operate?
So Framework 2 is the inner world. It is the psychological medium, the vast, invisible, timeless realm of belief, emotion, associative reasoning, and pure creative energy. It is the source code.
The source code, I like that.
And Framework 2 does not recognize linear time. It doesn't care about chronological sequence at all.
Wait, no time. How does anything happen?
It operates purely on intensities of feeling, deep expectations, and the associative linking of ideas. It is the fertile soil where all physical events are conceived, gestated, and eventually born into Framework 1.
So the logic of Framework 2 is totally alien to our everyday waking mind. F1 is so step by step.
Extremely alien. F1 requires steps.
Right. If I want to build a house in Framework 1, I have to buy the lumber, hire the contractors, and hammer the nails in a specific linear sequence. But you're saying that in Framework 2, the building process is purely associative.
Yes.
It's based on the emotional blueprint of what that house represents to me.
And that brings us to one of the most vital concepts in Chapter 1 of the nature of personal reality. Seth describes the physical world as a living picture.
A living picture. That sounds almost poetic.
It does, but this isn't just poetic language. It is a literal, mechanical description of reality. The physical environment you are standing in right now, including the bank account you mentioned, the health of your body, the people in your life, that entire physical landscape is a living picture projected from Framework 2 onto Framework 1.
Okay, let me try to map this out so I can really grasp it. If Framework 1 is the movie screen, the literal physical space where the drama of life is playing out, then Framework 2 is the projection booth hidden in the back of the theater.
That is exactly it. And the beliefs we hold, which are detailed so extensively throughout Chapter 2, are the actual film reel running through that projector.
So the beliefs are the film.
Yes. The light of your consciousness shines through the film reel of your beliefs, and the resulting image is cast onto the screen of Framework 1.
Wow. You know, this completely recontextualizes the concept of burnout. When you look at how our society operates, we are utterly obsessed with Framework 1 solutions.
Oh, completely.
When someone wants to change their financial reality, what do? They hustle harder. They take on a second job. They try to forcefully manipulate the physical elements.
They're trying to fix the screen.
Exactly. They are essentially running up to the movie screen and trying to change the ending of the film by smudging the light on the canvas.
And that physical effort, while it seems logical within the rules of Framework 1, is completely futile if the film reel in the projection booth hasn't changed. You are attacking a shadow.
Because the image is just light.
Exactly. You can exhaust yourself trying to scrub the image off the screen, but as long as the projector is running the same inner blueprint, the image will instantly reform the moment you step back.
That is so deeply frustrating, though.
It is. And this leads us to an even deeper layer of the mechanics, drawing directly from Seth Speaks. Seth tells us that physical reality is actually a camouflage pattern.
Camouflage, I mean, that almost implies deception. It sounds like you're saying we are being actively tricked by our own environment.
We are tricking ourselves, but it's a necessary mechanism for experiencing physical life. When we look around, matter appears incredibly solid, right? A mahogany desk feels impenetrable. A brick wall stops us in our tracks. A negative bank balance appears as an objective mathematical barrier. But Seth explains that physical matter is merely a localized translation of inner energy.
I want to really dig into this translation process because this is where I think a lot of people lose the thread. It's easy to accept that our thoughts influence our mood, but you are talking about thoughts turning into literal atoms and molecules. How does an invisible, weightless belief in Framework 2 actually become a solid, heavy object in Framework 1?
It has to do with electromagnetic energy. According to the mechanics laid out in Seth Speaks, every single thought, emotion, and belief you hold possesses a specific, measurable, though currently unmeasured by our science, electromagnetic reality.
So thoughts have actual mass or energy.
Exactly. Beliefs are not just abstract poetry floating in your mind. They are dense concentrations of electromagnetic energy. Seth refers to these as consciousness units or electromagnetic energy units.
Okay, so how do they become a desk? or a bank balance?
Well, when a belief reaches a certain threshold of intensity and consistency in Framework 2, it essentially forces its way through the threshold of visibility. It coalesces. The atoms and molecules that make up your physical environment possess their own rudimentary consciousness, and they eagerly form themselves into this living camouflage based on your deeply held inner intent.
They organize themselves.
Yes. They organize themselves in Framework 1, based entirely on the invisible blueprint provided by Framework 2.
So when I'm trying to manifest money, I'm actually in Framework 1 trying to rearrange the furniture, when I should be in Framework 2 changing the blueprint.
Yes. That is the exact mechanism at play. And that word you just used, trying, is critical. The very physical sensation of trying or straining to make something happen in your life is the most glaring signal of misalignment you can possibly receive.
Like that tightness in your chest when you were desperately trying to force a deal to close.
Yes.
Or the anxiety when you were aggressively chanting an affirmation in the mirror. That's what you mean by straining.
Exactly. When you feel that desperate, forceful pushing, it means you have forgotten the architecture. It means you are using Framework 1 tools for a Framework 2 job.
You're banging on the movie screen again.
You are trying to pry the camouflage pattern apart from the outside in with a crowbar, rather than simply altering the electromagnetic energy that is generating the camouflage in the first place.
Which is so much harder, practically speaking.
It is. But to confirm just how absolute this dynamic is, I'll read this exact quote from The Unknown Reality V1. Framework 2 is the source of all physical events.
All of them.
Not some physical events, not just the lucky coincidences, all of them.
Man, understanding this conceptually is one thing. I can sit here and follow the logic of consciousness units and electromagnetic translation. It makes intellectual sense.
Right, theory's easy.
But actually living this out on a Tuesday afternoon when the bills are due,
Yep.
catching yourself in the act of projecting a flawed blueprint when your physical senses are screaming at you that the danger is real, that is incredibly difficult.
Oh, it's the hardest work there is.
And honestly, to prove how incredibly hard it is to spot our own blueprint errors, we need to look at someone who literally wrote the book on this, but still struggled profoundly. We have to talk about Jane Roberts.
We must talk about Jane, because her personal story is the ultimate undeniable case study for you listening. Jane was not an aloof mystic sitting on a mountaintop, completely insulated from human suffering.
She lived a very normal life.
She was a working writer, living in an apartment in Elmira, New York, dealing with very real, very heavy human problems.
It really grounds the entire philosophy to know that the woman who channeled the phrase, "you create your own reality," was at times deeply frustrated by her own reality. Her life is the perfect illustration of this brutal clash between Framework 1 desires and Framework 2 beliefs.
Consciously so, in Framework 1, Jane desperately wanted financial security. She wanted physical health and vitality. She wanted to be able to pay her rent without panic and focus entirely on her writing. Those were her stated conscious desires.
But her inner blueprint, the film reel in her projection booth, was running a completely different movie. From what I understand, she held some deeply entrenched, inherited beliefs about the nature of art and money.
Deeply entrenched is an understatement. Buried deep in Framework 2, Jane carried beliefs inherited directly from her mother, who had lived a life of severe hardship and poverty.
So she brought that poverty mindset with her.
Completely. Combined with heavy cultural conditioning, Jane held on to the romanticized, deeply fatalistic idea that true artists must suffer.
Ah, the starving artist trope.
Exactly. She held a baseline expectation that money inherently corrupts the soul, that commercial success would destroy her artistic integrity, and that the physical body was something to be viewed with suspicion and fear.
Let's trace how that actually played out in her daily life, because this is where the theory hits the pavement. Every single day, she was taking massive Framework 1 action. She was writing tirelessly, she was submitting poetry to magazines, she was working incredibly hard to generate income.
Doing all the right F1 things.
Right. But what was the living feedback showing her?
Her Framework 1 actions were constantly being undermined, blocked, and sabotaged by her Framework 2 blueprint.
How so?
Well, every time she got close to a breakthrough, every time a bit of financial stability was on the horizon, her unconscious blueprint would throw up a massive roadblock. Suddenly, a publishing deal would fall through, or unexpected, overwhelming expenses would materialize out of thin air.
Just random bad luck, it seemed.
Or her physical symptoms, her severe rheumatoid arthritis, would flare up so intensely that she literally couldn't work.
From the outside, a regular observer would just say, wow, Jane has terrible luck. The universe is just against her. But based on the Seth material, Her Framework 2 beliefs were actually executing their job perfectly. They were protecting her.
They were executing the blueprint flawlessly. According to her inner rules, if she acquired wealth, she would become corrupted and lose her gift.
Because money is evil, according to her belief.
Right. And if she was comfortable and pain-free, she wouldn't be a pure artist. So the projection booth made sure the movie on the screen kept her struggling, broke, and physically restricted, because that perfectly aligned with her core belief of what was necessary and true. The camouflage pattern was faithfully representing her fear.
And when Jane would take this frustration to Seth during the channeling sessions, asking why her reality was so painful if she was supposedly the creator of it, what was the response? I mean, he didn't just tell her to hustle more or send out more query letters to publishers.
Seth repeatedly, relentlessly pointed Jane back to her inner beliefs. If you read the personal sessions, he is incredibly direct with her. He never told her to just be positive or to work longer hours.
No good vibes only stuff.
Not at all. He told her plainly that she was experiencing the living feedback of her own contradictory inner rules. Her physical environment, her financial struggles, her aching joints, that was all living feedback. It was the camouflage pattern perfectly reflecting the agonizing conflict in her psyche.
So the physical environment is basically a diagnostic tool. It's an alarm clock going off, showing her the exact beliefs she refused to look at consciously.
That's a great way to put it.
It makes me think of, well, restoring an old car. If you have a rusted out chassis and you just spray a beautiful glossy coat of candy apple red paint over it.
The rust doesn't care about the paint.
Right. The rust is still there, eating the metal. You can apply as much shiny Framework 1 paint over the situation as you want, but because the Framework 2 belief the rust remains completely unchanged, the Framework 1 reality, the paint, will inevitably bubble and peel. You cannot out-affirm a rusted foundation.
You really can't.
And this is exactly why the modern just think positive manifestation culture fails so spectacularly. Jane's struggle proves that positive thinking layered over a negative expectation is just fresh paint over deep rust.
It's worse than just fresh paint. It actually creates more conflict.
How so?
Because now you're exhausting your conscious mind trying to maintain a facade of positivity, while your unconscious mind is working overtime to manifest the rust.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. The turning point for Jane only came when she finally worked directly on the belief itself. And she didn't do it by slapping a happy affirmation over her fear of money. She had to sit down and examine the terrifying roots of that fear.
She had to face the music.
She had to look directly at her mother's poverty, her own fear of corruption, her fear of betraying her artistic integrity. Only when she faced those beliefs and gently shifted her baseline expectation in Framework 2 did her external reality in Framework 1 finally, tangibly begin to shift.
So if positive thinking is just fresh paint, then for you listening, we need a tool to actually locate and remove the rust. We need a reliable, structured way to peer directly into Framework 2 so we can read the blueprint for ourselves without getting lost in all the psychological weeds.
We need a mechanism for awareness. And that brings us to the core technique of our deep dive today. We can synthesize the practical exercises found in the nature of personal reality into what we'll call the expectation audit.
The expectation audit, I like it.
This is a deeper, highly practical technique designed specifically to bridge the gap between Framework 1 desires and Framework 2 expectations. We can break it down into 5 exact sequential steps that will allow you to find your own hidden rust.
I'm absolutely ready for this, because understanding the theory is great, but applying it is where the friction happens. Let's workshop these steps together. What is step 1?
Step 1 is isolation. Pick one specific area of life where your physical results consistently refuse to match your conscious desires.
Just one.
Just one. It could be your finances, your romantic relationships, your physical health, your career trajectory. But you must keep it to just one area to start. Otherwise, the mind becomes overwhelmed and defensive.
Okay, let's use the example I brought up at the very beginning of the show. I'll pick finances. I want to change my financial situation, but it stays stubbornly the same. What is step 2?
Step 2. Write down what you say you want. This is your Framework 1 desire. It's usually the socially acceptable, highly polished, conscious goal that you tell your friends or write in your journal.
Right, the shiny paint. So for me, my step 2 would be, I say I want a thriving business that brings in consistent, abundant income so I can relax and enjoy my life. That's my stated F1 desire.
Perfect. Now we cross the threshold into Framework 2. Step 3 is where the actual work begins, and this is where it gets highly uncomfortable.
Brace yourselves.
Step 3, write down what you secretly expect will happen. And the mandate here is brutal honesty. Do not write what you think you should expect. Do not write what your spiritual books tell you to expect. You have to write down what your gut actually anticipates is going to happen based on historical data.
Oh man, this is where the ego really fights back. Because to admit the secret expectation feels like admitting defeat. It feels like you are feeding the negative energy. But if I am being brutally honest, I say I want a thriving business, but my secret expectation is that it's going to be an endless, exhausting grind. And the moment I finally get ahead and save a little money, some massive unexpected expense like a car breaking down or a medical bill is going to materialize and wipe me out completely.
That is painfully honest.
Or if someone chose relationships for step one, it might be, I say I want a loving, committed partner, but my secret expectation is that the moment I show my true self, I will inevitably be abandoned or disappointed again.
Yes. That visceral, heavy, gut-level anticipation you just articulated, that is your Framework 2 blueprint, as the actual film running through the projector. Notice how different the energy of Step 3 is from Step 2.
Night and day.
Step 2 feels light and aspirational. Step 3 feels dense, familiar, and inevitable. That feeling of inevitability is the electromagnetic energy Seth is talking about. Now that you have it isolated, we move to Step 4.
Which is?
Trace the origin. Ask yourself, where did this exact expectation come from? It was not built into your DNA. You acquired it. Was it an early childhood experience?
Yeah.
Did you watch your parents argue about bills at the kitchen table every month and internalize the idea that money is intrinsically tied to panic?
You essentially have to become an objective detective of your own history. If I look at that expectation that getting ahead means an unexpected bill will wipe me out, I can trace that directly back to my family dynamic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Every time my dad got a bonus at work, the water heater would break or the roof would leak, and he would say, well, the universe never lets you get too comfortable. I heard that phrase 50 times before I was 10 years old. The universe never lets you get too comfortable. I'm literally just running my dad's old financial anxiety program.
Exactly. You are projecting an inherited piece of film. Recognizing that it is inherited brings us to the final mechanism. Step 5. Use the what-if backdoor.
A backdoor.
Yes. You don't try to forcefully destroy the belief. Instead, you gently undermine its authority by asking, what if this expectation was just a story I learned, not a hard, unchangeable fact about physical reality?
What if this is just a story? That phrasing is so deliberate. It doesn't trigger the ego's alarm system the way saying I am instantly a millionaire does. It just introduces a tiny sliver of doubt into the limiting belief. It softens the grip of the rest.
It softens the grip, and it initiates the mechanics of awareness. The vital thing to understand here is that the goal of this audit isn't to violently force a new belief into existence. You don't have to mentally wrestle yourself to the ground.
Which is such a relief.
In the Seth material, the sheer act of seeing the old belief clearly and recognizing it as a belief rather than a fact strips it of its invisible power. Awareness within Framework 2 is the exact mechanism that initiates change in Framework 1.
It's almost like, you know, when your computer is just completely freezing up, the fan is spinning like crazy, your battery is rapidly draining, and you can't even move the mouse.
Yeah, worst feeling.
You don't try to fix it by, I don't know, taping a new battery to the outside of the laptop. You don't hit the keyboard with a hammer. That would be a Framework 1 reaction.
You open the activity monitor. You open the task manager.
Right. You open the task manager to find the hidden program, the malware that is running in the background and draining all your resources. And the beautiful thing is you don't even have to write new code to fix the computer.
You just stop it.
Just highlighting the malware and hitting End Task does it. Bringing the invisible program into the light is what solves the problem.
Highlighting the hidden program is exactly what the expectation audit does. It takes the unconscious and makes it conscious, thereby removing its automatic control over your physical camouflage. And to validate why this sequential process is so profoundly necessary, I'm going to read this exact quote from Seth Speaks. He lays down the sequence of manifestation perfectly. You must change the belief before you can change the physical evidence.
You must change the belief before you can change the physical evidence. So the physical evidence, the bank account balance, the relationship status, the job title is always the trailing indicator. It is the echo, not the source sound.
Precisely.
But practically speaking, how do you implement this audit on a daily basis without getting completely overwhelmed? Because if you sit down and look at all your limiting beliefs at once across your entire life, it feels like opening that task manager and seeing 100 different viruses running simultaneously. It induces panic.
It can absolutely induce panic, which is why the ego works so hard to keep the camouflage in place. You don't try to fix the entire operating system in one afternoon. It starts with a highly specific, contained, 24-hour mission.
Give us the mission, because we need a way to take this out of the theoretical realm and put it to work.
The mission is an exercise we'll call the expectation tracker. It is highly actionable, and it is strictly limited to the next 24 hours. Here are the rules. Today, pick just one area of life, ideally the same one you chose in your audit. Every single time you have a passing thought, a feeling, or take an action related to that area, you must pause and notice the underlying expectation beneath the thought.
Okay, let's walk through what that actually looks like. If my chosen area is finances and I go to the coffee shop to buy my morning coffee, I don't just mindlessly swipe my card. I pause for 1 second and look at what my gut expects as the transaction processes.
Precisely. You look for the subtle, automatic feeling. But here is the critical, non-negotiable rule of this exercise. Observation over alteration. Do not try to change the expectation today. If you feel a wave of financial anxiety when you swipe the card, do not immediately try to counter it by whispering, "I am infinitely wealthy."
No forced affirmations.
No. If you try to aggressively change it, you trigger the ego's resistance. Your only job for these 24 hours is to label the expectation neutrally.
So I just observe the malware running. I say to myself, there's the expectation that spending this $5 is going to leave me depleted.
Yes.
Or if it's career focus, there's the expectation that my boss is going to reject this proposal before I even open my mouth.
Yes. You label it with detachment and curiosity, almost like a scientist observing an interesting species of bug through a microscope. You are just collecting data.
Just observing.
Keep a mental or even a physical tally throughout the day. Every time the expectation flares up, note it. And then at the end of the day, sit down in a quiet space and ask yourself a singular question. What is the theme of my expectations in this area?
Because if you track those micro thoughts all day long, a pattern is going to emerge very clearly. It won't be subtle by 8 p.m.
It will be undeniable. You will see the architecture of your own mind laid bare. And if we connect this realization back to the broader physics we discussed earlier, that overriding theme you discover, that is your exact Framework 2 blueprint.
That's the film.
That is the electromagnetic energy you are currently using to construct your physical matter. That is the camouflage pattern you are projecting into the world. That is the film running through your projector.
And simply seeing this theme, simply acknowledging that the film reel exists, is the first major step to true lasting change. You cannot redraw a blueprint if you refuse to look at the lines that are already drawn on the paper.
We've covered an immense amount of ground today, diving deep into the absolute core of the Seth material.
I really have.
We've moved from the initial frustration of failed affirmations and exhausting action in Framework 1, and we've walked directly into the engine room of Framework 2. We unpack the physics of the living picture and the camouflage pattern.
And the electromagnetic translation.
Yes. We've seen how these exact mechanics profoundly affected Jane Roberts herself, proving that even the messenger had to do the grueling, honest work of confronting her inherited beliefs. And we've given you the tools to audit and track your own hidden blueprints.
The audit and the tracker.
I want to remind you, listening to this right now, the physical world you are standing in is just living feedback. It is a mirror. And you cannot force the mirror to smile by manipulating the glass. You have to change the face looking into it.
Think about this. What if the very frustration you feel right now about your reality isn't a sign that you're failing? What if that frustration is actually Framework 2 knocking on your door, using your physical reality as an alarm clock, desperately trying to show you the blueprint you forgot you drew?
What a profound way to look at it. Thank you for joining us in the projection booth today. We encourage you to run your expectation tracker over the next 24 hours. It is time to stop rearranging the furniture of your life and start redrawing the blueprint.